guys, welcome back for another episode of Twins Talk Therapy. I'm Aaron Goodrich. I own my own business, AMG Manual Therapy in Westerville, Ohio.
And I'm Adam Goodrich. I own my own business, Goodrich Myotherapy in Findlay, Ohio. And I'm a licensed massage therapist and a physical therapist assistant, also a master myoskeletal therapist.
I should have mentioned I'm a licensed athletic trainer and licensed massage therapist in the state of Ohio. This is Twins Talk Therapy. We're identical twin brothers, and we talk all things related with massage therapy, physical therapy, athletic training, manual therapy, and all the like encompassed in that realm. Today we want to kind of expand on our last video about red light therapy. But today we're talking about the end of the ice age, and that is a term that was coined by Mike Stella, an athletic trainer out in New York that owns his own business, the Movement Underground. He developed an online course for continuing education purposes called The End of the Ice Age, where he goes over kind of a change in the paradigm of how we treat soft tissue injuries, that being with the RICE protocol, rest, ice compression, and elevation. And said, and he kind of questioned maybe that's not the way we should still be doing things. One of those things that we do nowadays to help combat that is red light therapy, in addition to other things. But going through a little bit of the research, there is no conclusive evidence out there that said that ice was beneficial for speeding up or helping with the timeline in the healing process with soft tissue related injuries. Um, but it was it came about because a surgeon by the name of Dr. Ronald Malt and a surgical team around him completed the first successful limb reattachment surgery on a young boy out in Somersville, Massachusetts, back in the 60s. And they contributed the success of the surgery a lot to putting the limb on ice, which slowed down tissue death and helped preserve the limb. And so it was theorized that that would help with the same type of process, preventing the same type of process with like cellular tissue death that might occur with soft tissue injuries, sprains, strains, and that sort of thing. Dr. Gabe Merkin, who worked in the sports medicine and orthopedic field, developed the RICE protocol, the RICE or the rest ice compression elevation that we've used for the last 40 years or so. And he published it in a book called the Sports Medicine Book. And so it gained vast popularity after that. And fast forward to 2013, 2014, Dr. Gabe Merkin actually recanted his statements about ICE and kind of the RICE protocol and how ICE fit into that protocol, with the benefits that were touted before, saying, basically I was wrong and I apologize. It doesn't look like ICE actually helps things. It could actually hurt things or just slow the healing process down. Yeah, now we have a new protocol and kind of new things that we do. And some of the new research coming out has been like, yeah, no icing, and let's do some other things. So Adam, after I gabbed on there for a little while, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about what we do, you and I, and some of the other practitioners these days to help heal soft tissues injuries.
Yeah. When we say no icing injuries too, what we mean is that the period of the day after the injury and the subsequent days is where you're not supposed to be icing 20 minutes every hour on the hour. There's an ischemic effect that the body goes into after an injury where the blood vessels constrict, and ischemia just means a lack of blood flow. So there's a lack of blood flow to the injury site. And in that first 10 to 20 minutes, you can apply ice to encourage blood flow to get to the injury site. But beyond that, you're not supposed to be icing religiously like they used to do. And so that's what we're specifically talking about. And this does not have anything to do with the ice water plunging that people are doing, which is showing great benefits to strengthening the immune system, uh, decreasing inflammation over the whole body and all that. There's a lot of research being shown that that stuff is good for you. So we're not talking about that either. We're talking about icing an injury within half hour after an injury and the subsequent week or two after religiously every hour icing it. That's what we're not wanting to do, because that actually will slow down the healing process. Um, in place of ice, what you can do is massage. You could do lymphatic drainage. You can do red light therapy, which is what we did our last video on, and that's the main thing that is shown as a good replacement for ice is the red light therapy, because it encourages circulation and reduces inflammation, and it has all kinds of benefits to help speed up the recovery process. It convinces the mitochondria to produce more ATP, which is cellular energy, and the cells having more energy will give them the ability to repair the site of injury faster. So there's all kinds of cells in your body that are specifically designed to repair and rebuild, and that's what the red light therapy encourages. And lastly, cupping uh, above the injury site is shown to help draw fluid away from the injury site and to encourage waste removal, the waste products of the recovery process, and encourage just that fresh blood supply to get in there. So, those are the three main things that you can do in place of ice and compression nowadays, now that we're getting more research showing that there's better things out there. So,
Excellent. Yeah. So, uh, end of the ice age is just that term that Mike Stella coined, meaning maybe it should be the end of the time where we use bags of ice on soft tissue injuries around the clock and just kind of set it, forget it, and let it rest. Movement, massage, lymphatic drainage, red light therapy, cupping, encouraging movement and blood flow to the area is what we want. And icing does not do that, it does the opposite. So, with that said, I think we'll wrap this video up, and you can email us any questions at twinstalktherapy@gmail.com. You can also follow me on my social medias at AMG Manual Therapy or at AMG Manual on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And I also have a website, amgmanualtherapy.com. You can hit me up there as well.
yeah, and I just search Goodrich Myotherapy on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to find me. And my website is goodmyo, that's GOODMYO.com. And that's where you can book an appointment. You guys can see what red light therapy is all about for yourselves, because the units themselves are a little impractical to purchase for every individual. But if you find a red light unit in your area, or if you're in Aaron or I's area and you want to try it, hit us up,
Yeah,
and we'll see you next week.
yeah, get on our schedules. All right, Adam, that is
Yep.
it for today's episode, and we will see you next time.
See you, everyone.